Oh, dang. I'm gonna pull us a little closer, man. Dang, man. We look good. What's up, everybody? Yeah, we're live. We're gonna let a few folks trickle in. I'm gonna also try to see. Last time I was like talking to Sean, and then I had to like go to my phone to look at comments.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm trying new stuff here, so hopefully I can hop on here.
You're learning.
I might be. I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy. But I might actually be learning a little bit. Oh, dang. That's us. So how's your day been, man?
It's been alright.
Oh, yeah. This is really weird. There's us. All right, cool. So first off, this is Dominick, my friend.
Hi.
We coerced him into coming in. I wouldn't say I forgot, but I definitely was a little bit behind. Life just seems to be going really fast, and I texted you at like 2, and I was like, dude, I think today is like the day we're supposed to do higher philosophy.
I was like, no, it's got to be next week.
Yeah.
It's like I know I was planning on it next Friday.
I
thought about it earlier in the week. I was like, oh shit, that's coming up pretty soon. Like we're doing that next Friday.
Like on my videos when me and Sean did it, like I was like, oh, okay, that was the 31st. I need to start putting it in my calendar, because like no matter what happens with my upload schedule, like in like doing vlogs or builds or whatever, I really want to keep this going because this is super fun. And honestly, like these are things that we want to do like as like car guys and people like as friends, you know what I mean? Like we've always been like, hey man, just come over on Friday and bullshit and drink a freaking beer or soda or whatever and we'll hang out. Well, like when you make it like a thing, it just makes it happen. Like, you know,
because it's easy to be like, we'll push it off to next week, and then we'll push it off to next week, and then the next thing you know, it's 3 months have gone by, and
there was
happens.
no hangout.
Just like Sean was talking about last time about working on your car. I mean, consistency is important.
Yep.
Setting a schedule, like even if it's like I'm going to spend 20 minutes every day. When I get home, I'm gonna walk in the garage and do something. Not be like, oh, I only got 20 minutes, so I'll do it next time. No, try to do it. Try to make it happen. You know, I'm as guilty as everybody else. Like I push everything off, and that's why I have like 17 projects on my plate right now.
But also, it's probably gonna look like we're sweating profusely, and it's because it's 137, and we're in my shop with the 2 modes of airflow closed, so hopefully you can hear us. Let me know if you can't hear us. I'll try to fix it. I have the comments up here on the computer. I'm actually watching us, which is really weird. Hello me, there I am. Cool.
There's the delay is fucking with me.
The delays, so you guys are behind real time, just saying.
Like 5 seconds.
So what I want to do is similar to last time, kind of try to keep a structure. We're going to get to know Dominick a little bit, and then we'll roll into kind of some of the things I want to keep normal. Maybe we're talking about cars, talking about, it's 65 here. Sorry, I just saw a comment. Sir, that is BS.
Yeah.
Wherever he's at.
Screw you.
Where are you at? That's not fair.
We're definitely in the hundreds now.
I think we started cracking
hundreds for the next 3 months.
Wasn't last year the month of May the most hundreds in a May or something silly? It's just hot here, whatever. Anyways, so
but you know what? We don't have snow. We have beautiful hot rod weather all winter. So
you just want to make sure you have good fans for the summer.
You guys can enjoy that.
It's back and forth. I feel like snow could be fun. I've seen it like 3 times, so I don't know. That's what they say.
Just don't eat the yellow snow.
Or do. I don't know. Live a little. So, Dominick Rosato, full name, in case you want to look this muff up.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah, man, find him. But it's kind of an odd coincidence that you actually work with Sean, and it's through hot rodding. So we can skip that. He works with Sean. If you don't know where that is, go watch the episode with Sean and find out where Sean works.
Yeah.
And
we both work at Vector Space.
Yeah.
We both build rockets. I won't say any more than that. Yeah. Shoot satellites into orbit. So, and that's been the nice thing, and it's interesting how connected the hot rod community is here, because like I knew Sean before I opened my shop, from him having a shop and me growing up in the car scene here, and just being around cars and hot rods and seeing Sean out and talking with him. And then I opened a shop, and coincidentally it was right around the corner from him, so we used to go back and forth and trade work and stuff all the time, and I got to know him. So he closed his shop like 9 months, a year before I closed mine. And I did a couple odd jobs. I worked for Rainbird Irrigation for a little bit as an engineer, and I was kind of looking for work because my contract ended there, and just kind of doing odd jobs. And he's like, yeah, you got to come buy a Vector. And it just so happened that the owner, Jim, also has Vintage Exotics, which they restore kind of rare and exotic race cars. Like they do vintage race car stuff.
So sick.
So I had gone by, and Barry's like, well, yeah, actually I need help. We just put we put a Coyote in this 65 Mustang, and I don't have the time to really go, or the know-how to go through the wiring harness right now. He's like, I'm sure I can figure it out, but I need some expertise. It's like, can you come in a couple of days and help me? And I had I came in a Saturday and had ready to hit the key and fire by the end of the day. He's like, can you start full time on Mondays? Sure. And that grew into having a job. I work on the avionics side. So Sean's a fabricator, and I work in the back shop. I do all the wiring for the rockets and stuff. So I get to play with all the magic pixies, and ones and zeros all day. So it's been interesting, because I started as a fabricator working with Sean, and I've kind of moved around a little bit, and that's been the cool thing, is like everybody there seems to be multifaceted, and it's completely because everybody there started as a hot rodder. Like everybody I work with is in the cars or has some kind of car background or racing background,
which makes it sick.
Yeah, kind of aerospace background of some sort. So it's always interesting, because someone's always got something cool in the parking lot, or something to talk about or something. So, and I think working on cars makes you a lot more versatile of, I guess a technician, for lack of better words. There's a little bit of everything. You got to figure out how to do the wiring. You got to do some fabrication. You got to become a mechanic. There's some upholstery work. There's a little bit of everything. So
I think it's really funny. Before we even dive into too much more of who you are, I want to add to that, because I think about being a mechanic a lot, and I also think about like hot rodders in general. And usually people that are really successful or have like really bad cars, like really fast cars, really like I guess the thing is called a program now, right? Like you have a fast program, like you have like a badass car and like people surrounding you, helping you on it, whatever. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, those people are pretty successful in their life as well. Like not all the time, like I said, but I mean, it takes some amount of success, right? You have to have money to play with the cars. You got to have good people around you. Like,
absolutely.
It's kind of interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and that's, you bring up a good point, because it's not just necessarily a success on like, oh, I made a bunch of money off of investments or something. Like it takes a certain level of discipline to figure out like how to be able to critically think about your build. I mean, and that's one of the big things you see. Like there's lots of people with low buck projects or programs, if you want to call it, that are whooping the shit out of these high dollar cars, is because they don't just throw parts at the car. They think about it, they research it. And I think, and this is an interesting thing I've talked to a couple of people about lately, is just Google. The power of Google and the internet era that we're in now is like before, and me and Sean actually had this conversation a couple months ago. Like before, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to the library and check out a book, or find someone that knew something,
find a mentor,
and let that mentor teach you what they knew, and they only could teach you what they knew. Whereas now there's a wealth of information that I don't know about this, so I'm just gonna start digging down the rabbit hole, and then 4 or 5 hours later you've gone in like 7 or 8 forums, you've read a bunch of bad experience, a bunch of good experiences, a bunch of shitty information, a bunch of really good information, and that's That's another challenge about it. That
It's information
yeah,
overload.
there's so much information. How do you pick what's the good stuff? And like having a good basis of like knowledge is, I think, it takes a little bit to get to that point where you can kind of critically look at it and go, that doesn't really make sense, and I don't think he's right. And not because you're trying to be an asshole or
Right.
anything, but just because
Your
you
experience.
know about like how things work mechanically, and you know how the science behind things, or is the lack of a better term. And it's going through school. I'm going through school right now for mechanical engineering, and I'm starting my senior year. So it's been interesting going back because I have a ton of car experience. I owned my own shop for 5 years ish, and like you work on enough stuff, you experience enough stuff, you start to understand, for lack of a better term, the way of the world, the way metal moves, the way things bend, the way mechanical things move together. And it's been interesting, like going back objectively, looking at school, and not just being this class to learn this equation or to learn this math on how to do something, but to actually be able to say, oh, all right, that part I broke, it had this really weird pattern because it twisted, and this is the science why it twisted. So it's been really cool, and like kind of a powerful tool where I've been a lot better than my fellow classmates on being able to pick up and understand this stuff because I have that background.
A life experience
Yeah.
or seeing it. Getting.
Okay.
Little baby Dominic likes cars, or when does it start?
Making motor noises and stuff, annoying the shit out of my parents and stuff. But my dad was never really into cars. My dad's pretty handy. Like we've always fixed everything ourselves. Like as far as housing stuff or plumbing, drywall. I've done tile with my dad growing up. Just figure out how to fix it. And my grandfather and my dad both told me, like, if someone can do something, you can do it too. So I've kind of had that mentality my whole life, but I was never really around cars per se, like family wise. But I've got a really good buddy, Matt, and I give him and his dad credit for kind of shaping me and getting me into cars, because his dad did like consignment deals. He bought and sold and like did a little bit of. So being around that, like growing up around it, I always saw cool cars, but like I really got my hands to dig in.
I always talk about this.
Well, the first thing I did was put a booming stereo in it,
Sick.
just because I didn't know anything better.
That's the first step.
But like the fuel pump went out on it, and I had to figure out how to change the fuel pump and stuff, and that got me like enough of the itch to be like, oh, this is kind of fun. So I took an Eclipse turbo kit off of out of a junkyard, and I put it on that because it's more or less the same motor. But I didn't know any better, so I didn't change the tune or anything. And it dropped the exhaust seats out of the head in like 2 days because it was running so lean, and I blew that thing up like in record fucking time. But I didn't know anything better back then.
But you did it.
Yeah, so I was on the hunt for another car like somewhere between my junior and senior year, and I had this was pretty pivotal too. I was dating this girl in high school, and her dad was friends with this guy Dennis Elias, and a lot of people know him here in town. He's built a I guess phenomenal fabric. I met this guy when I was
mentor, right?
Yeah,
the mentor.
when I was like 15 and a half, and I had started working for him, and just like I learned to weld a little bit from him. I started learning to TIG weld. Like I started learning to like put things together, and I started like learning what hot rods are.
That's huge
And
at that point in time.
Not just having him around, but like I remember like there was this old guy Huey that used to come around that had a 32 Ford, and like just guys that had been hot rodding their entire life. And like just getting like immersed in that at such a young age, like that's really what bit me with the bug. And like being around that, I remember Huey brought this guy AJ by. It was in his 90s, and he was telling me about I'm 15 years old at the time. And he's telling me about how he used to go play bumper cars with their hot rods after they went moonshining in Alabama in the winter out on the ice lakes and stuff. And just all these crazy stories. And it was like, this is so cool. So I had blown my van up after, like, I was working for him when I blew my van up.
Big touch, dude. Put up that ET finger, dude. What is happening? Is it good?
Let's see.
Oh,
yeah, we're back.
Oh,
I don't know where it cut off.
oh my goodness. Are we back? Yeah, we are. I'm convinced we're back. Throw me a comment, please. Let us know if we're back. I'm super sorry about the technical difficulties. I think it's my. Yeah, dude. It's. I'm pretty sure we alright. All right. So please continue.
So anyway,
Thanks, bro. $400 Mustang. Right?
Yeah, I bought this thing. It was like $500. The wheels were locked up. Like the winch dragged it up, locked wheels up the trailer. Like I had no idea what I was doing at this point. I knew I liked cars, but you know, I had Dennis's help. My friend Veronica's dad was gracious enough. He's like, just bring it by my garage and like we'll go through it. And we took the wheel cylinders apart and he taught me how to like hone them and rebuild them. And like I reset the timing and I did a head gasket, all like with him helping me. And I had this piece of crap Mustang that was all smashed up in the front, but it was mechanically, it was running again. So I spent
6-cylinder?
6-cylinder.
Yeah.
6-cylinder, 3-speed. You know, 67 Mustang coupe. Wasn't anything
$500 Mustang.
Yeah, so I found some fenders in the junkyard, and I spent like 2 days pounding the inner structure back out with a hammer, and I took a can of, like, I found a can of MAP gas for like soldering pipes in my dad's tool shed, and banging it back into shape. But like I got everything where I took it to the alignment shop and it aligned out right, and I hung some fenders and everything on it, and like there was no heater box in it, so there's a giant hole in it, and like it gets pretty cold. Like I had finally gotten that to going, and it's like winter time here. Like 30 degrees. I've got like 2 jackets on driving this thing. But I didn't care because like I had a hot rod again.
Yeah, you did it,
and
man. That's pretty crazy.
I'm sitting here.
I
Like,
haven't even done
doing a bunch of research. Like, oh, I'm gonna build a 302 for it and find a swap car and all of this stuff. And like I started getting parts together, and then I had what had happened? I forgot. I had gotten in an accident. I think it was in one of my parents' cars, and like I got some like pain and suffering money, and I was like, cool, hot rod money. I'm gonna save this, and I'm in high school.
Pain and suffering money is always hot rod money.
Yeah.
No matter, even if it hit your hot rod, make it faster. Don't make it pretty.
So I thought like I'm gonna V8 and 5-speed swap this thing, and it's gonna be cool as hell, and like I'm starting to get it together, and like, whoa, this is a pretty big project. And my buddy Matt's dad had been using this painter Freddie, and I went by there with him, and he had this Super 6 69 Le Mans that was flat black. He's like, yeah, I'm closing down my shop, I need to sell it. He's like, well, what do you want for it? He's like, $6,000. And I had like $3,500 saved, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put the Mustang up for sale. I bet you I can get $3,000 for it. I put it up for sale, and like I rattle canned the whole thing one color, you know, really terribly, like a 17-year-old would have done. And I sold it like a week later for $3,000. And so I ran over there and I paid for the car, and he had blown up the rear end like the weekend before. He's like, well, yeah, I'll take the money, but like it'll be a couple weeks. So he put the rear end back together, and like,
which is actually probably ideal at that point.
Yeah,
you could probably like just fix it and give it to me.
He put 373s in it, and like the car hauled ass. Like for BB, it was a low 13s car, like the way it was. So I drove that like my senior year in high school, but he told me the motor was built, so I still didn't really know what I was doing. I was learning and you know, reading and just figuring things out. And you know, I was shifting the thing at like 6,500 RPM because he told me it was built. I didn't know any better.
Right, I know. So, which is crazy that it lived.
a couple of months go by of just hot rodding that thing around. Made it through, graduated high school, got in a bunch of trouble for doing this big smoky burnout on graduation night, and You know, like a month later, it started knocking. So
I don't know why it's
yeah,
not.
I had no idea why it's knocking. I wasn't
no-
straight racing and beating the shit out of it, but
A motor that
so-
probably should have been shipped at like 52.
yeah. So I pulled the motor out of it. My buddy Matt Carpentier was like, "Just bring it over, kid," and it was kind of cool to like get to know Frank a little bit before he really lost his mind. So Frank was helping me go through and figure out what I wanted to do with the motor, and from hanging out with my buddy Matt Moga, I had gotten to know Eddie McFeeters here in town, who builds he his main business is doing like maintenance and repair work on boats, but they build these really badass endurance, like old school flat bottom V drive boats, and like
That's in town.
100 mile an hour boats. Yeah,
Oh, shit.
Some of the coolest, like most beautiful boats. He's got a couple of Mandelas that like every time I see him, I drool over them. So Eddie was gracious enough because I'd been going down there and hanging out and just trying to soak up as much knowledge as I could. He's like, yeah, just bring your block down here and like I'll help you build it. So he spent like 2 months with me, like just when he could, like on the weekends for like half a day, and we went over everything and we went through everything, and he showed me how he puts his motors together, and you know, and from then I just kept learning, kept doing stuff for buddies, kept putting things together. You know, it's like like most of you, I go to bed reading about this stuff. I wake up thinking about it. Like I catch myself on. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I've got a question or something. I'll find something on the internet. I buy books. Like I try once a month. I try to buy a new book. Like I just bought Herb Adams' chassis engineering book, and I'm just looking through that.
Hell
but, like,
yeah.
I try to make sure like once a month I've got a new book, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. Besides just read what I find on the internet.
Which is like you said earlier, it can be hit and miss. But
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
you'll find something good.
So just through hanging out and doing car stuff, like I got to know enough people, and I was doing side work here and there, and like I had started working for my buddy Kyle at K&K's on the side while I was working and going to school, and like just had so many people like supporting me and like wanting to bring me stuff for side work that I finally like was in the garage. I can't remember what we were working on with my buddy Charlie and my buddy Brian. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of working for someone else. Like, I want to start a shop. I've talked about it forever. Talked about always owning a shop. What do I got to lose?
Right.
And Charlie looked at me. He's like, dude, I'm in. And like that next weekend, we kind of drafted up a business plan and like started filling out the paperwork. And like 2-3 months later, we were in business. So we found a building, and it was just, you know, everybody thought I was crazy. It's like, you're just a kid. Like, you don't, like, I was 23, almost 24 years old.
That's
at the time.
super young, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, everybody was like, what are you doing? I was like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I was looking for a job when I started this business. I'll be looking for a job afterwards.
Right.
Like, and
What am I going to do? Go bankrupt? I have nothing. Like,
yeah, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but the most rewarding. I mean, to go into it not knowing anything about business and just knowing that I like cars. And I had gotten to the point where I felt like I was pretty competent. And I mean, my customers loved the work I did. I didn't have a whole lot of things coming back where people were just like, that's not, like, you don't know what you're doing. But it was like the business end of it was the part where I was really struggling. And that whole game, like, I got so burnt out, and a lot of it is because I didn't know what I was doing. I created bad habits in the beginning that were really tough to break once the business got going, and in the routine of things that like it was hard to like overcome and get past that hump. So, you know, we got a letter towards the end saying that the owner of the building that we were renting sold the building, and we had 30 days to vacate. So I asked Charlie and Brian, I was like, what do you guys want to do? And they're just like, it's been a fun run, but it's time to hang up. Which it was kind of a good thing, because I think I would still be like fighting tooth and nail to keep the place open. And yeah, it was like I was making like $600 a month.
Oh.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was just
that's a labor of love,
absolutely brutal, and it burnt me out. It really burnt me out, like making that little bit of money, and it was just it was hard to stay passionate about it, especially because like I didn't like what I was working on, and like I got in this situation all the time where and it was a hard one. I didn't know how to say no to jobs because I was afraid of this 6,000 square foot building, like the nut we had on top of it to pay every month. I was
Right.
so afraid of not making any money that I would just take every job in, and like you would get these people in like, oh, I only have this much money to do this job, and it's like, well, I could do just what you're going to pay me for, and say I don't care and send it out the door, and then you're going to take it to car shows, you're going to take it to all your
Right, and
buddies
say
and
that
say,
you worked on
Dom over there at CCLP, those guys built it, and they're going to look at it and be like, oh, that's pretty half-assed.
That's the worst car I've
like
ever
that
seen.
car sucks. But he's never going to go and say, well, I was on a budget.
Yeah, I gave him
couldn't
$3.
I couldn't afford to have them do it right. So I ended up spending, like, I was looking at things and it was like, how am I not bringing any money in and I'm working my ass off? Well, it's because we spent a ton of time, like, really taking, like, for example, I did a 63 Corvette for a guy. Still a good friend of mine. Like, I'm not complaining about it. Alvaro, if you see this, it's not a complaint. But it's one of those things, like, I took the car apart. He wanted me to rebuild the suspension. Like, you charged him book hours for rebuilding the suspension because that's what any other shop's going to do,
Right.
and that's what I figured was fair. But the 8-hour book job for doing the front suspension, just the bushings, was definitely not enough because I took every arm off, every arm got sandblasted, every arm got painted, everything.
It's restoration work.
Yeah,
it's
you're
not
doing
mechanical.
restoration work. You're doing mechanic. So it's just the labor that's involved in that there's so much to do in restoration work that it's hard to make any money. And if you tell a guy like, oh, it's going to cost you $3,000 for me to restore the stock suspension, he's going to, well, no, I'm going to go down to Brake Max. They told me $500.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just that fight. It's not that I don't love cars and I love, but I truly believe that side of things on a local level is dying. Like,
well, it's dying and it's difficult, and on top of that, like you said, you were young. You probably
Yeah.
came up really fast mechanically, but you notice a lot of people that have, I mean, there's always going to be ringers, but there's people that have like really successful shops. Usually they've had like a long career of
Yeah.
different things, and they're like in their 30s or 40s.
Yeah, well, and the lessons I've learned from that have
Right.
been monumental. I think I learned more doing that than if I would have gone to business school for
Yep.
4 years, if I would have gone to Eller at the U of A for 4 years. And, talking business with people that have MBAs, I feel like there's sometimes I know more than them, and it's just because I learned it from the School of Hard Knocks. Like, I learned, oh, that's not going to fucking work. And one of the coolest things, too, and one of the things, since we're talking kind of philosophy, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's the biggest thing I can say. And this is a cool story. I was figuring out, what do I charge? How do I get over this hump of, like, how to charge people right, how to talk about prices and stuff like that. I was like, how do other people do it? I'm just going to pick up the phone and start calling and seeing who will answer. I called Austin Speech Out, and I just so happened to call when Jesse was there. Jesse took 2.5 hours out of his day to sit down and talk to me about life and business and stuff like that, and like kind of give me some pointers. And I was kind of blown away that I called the Ring Brothers, and they weren't in, but one of their managers was in, and he did the same thing. He spent 1.5 hours talking business, answering my questions, and that's what I love about the hot
That's
rod
crazy.
community.
I didn't know that, bro.
Everybody's so willing to help, and it was just, it was awesome to see that. And like, I think a lot of people get stuck in this mentality of like, oh, like I can't call anybody, I got to figure this out on my own. It's like, no, we're all here to do the same thing.
Yep.
Like, ask your buddies, ask a professional, try calling, and those things really kind of helped shape and get the ball going back in the right direction for me. And it's I try to do the same thing for
That's
people.
cool,
Anytime
man.
anybody's got a question, I try to sit down and do whatever I can to answer questions for them.
So what about like right now? Now that like you've worked up somewhat to present time, what are you working on presently? Like, what's the next chapter for you? That kind of stuff.
So that 69 Le Mans I was talking about in high school is kind of something that's been bothering me and is kind of been backburnered in my life. But I was talking about Frank Townsend earlier, and he was kind of a legend in this town. He had done a lot of work on like Arnie Beswick's car, and like he's a pretty famous hot rodder and drag racer, and like friends with a lot of people nationally, and a lot of anyways, I got to know him pretty well, and he passed away about 3 years ago now. Well, when they liquidated his estate, I got to pick up his '64 GTO drag car he had when he was in high school. So I've been working on that. I first put a motor out of a 75 Catalina in it that had 2 rusty cylinders that I just dingle ball honed and threw it together just to try to make it to Roadkill's Hoopty Challenge here. And
That was
we
the
got
first
it.
one, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the very first one, and I got the car put together, and it started knocking and losing oil pressure. I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna take it and blow it up." So it was fun for a little while, and I ran it for a while, and oil pressure started at like 18, and then went down to 15, and then to 10, and then it started really knocking. So it's like, all right, it's time to pull the motor out of that. So
I was there when you had the like the initial or the end all like I'm done.
Yeah, we went to Little Anthony's that night, and it was just like, okay, this thing, because you heard it. Like, I'm driving next to your GTO, and it's just like, it's knocking now. It's like, all right, this thing's ready to come apart. It's time to retire it. So I took it apart, and it's kind of poetic the way this worked. The transmission that went in the car was one I bought. It's a Muncie I bought from a transmission shop that was selling off a bunch of parts from one of their customers that passed. Well, it happened to be Frank's, so I bought Frank's old 4-speed and put it in the car. And the motor I had built for my '69, I had it on a stand. I was waiting for the car to be painted, so I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna put that motor."
There was some really bad influence that kept telling you to put that motor.
Yeah, so the motor Frank and Eddie helped me build. I ended up putting in the car, and I had quite a bit of fun for a little while. But unfortunately, I had Frank sold me when I put that motor together this super cool custom oil pump. This is a Ford FE pump because they're not the 2 gears, they're the gear rotor style, so they're supposedly more efficient. But anyways, they made a spacer, they plugged the pickup hole, and created this badass plate on the bottom that was cut in the shape of a tin Indian to fit perfectly in a Canton pan. So I put that together like that, and I got starting to really feel like I got the motor broken in and starting to play with it, and all of a sudden oil pressure disappeared on that. So I took it all apart, and it had they took the normal Ford FE shaft, they cut it down, and then took a flat end mill and ground a slot in it. And I don't know if they didn't heat treat it afterwards or something fucked up in the heat treat, but if you look at it, it was cracked before, and I didn't catch it when I put the motor together. But it sheared the 2 tabs off the oil pump drive.
So it just
like the drive was flat where the end of
right.
the end of that flat blade
should have the 2 like the
those just fucked off, disappeared. That was it. So
pump held up though.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it hurt the crank pretty good, but the bores were okay. So I actually just picked it up on my way to come here. I picked the block up from the machine shop, so I got the block, the pistons, everything's all balanced. I got everything for my short block to put together.
Hell
I'm just
yeah.
waiting on him to finish the head. So
that thing was bad too. Tell us a little bit more about the motor.
So
this is Pontiac stuff, right?
Yeah, so it's a 400. I didn't stroke it or anything. I wanted to keep it a smaller displacement, but it's got Crowder rods in it. It's got a set of the early Keith Black forged pistons that are now icons in it now. It's 11-to-1 compression. It's got a set of Kaufman heads that have been CNC ported to float 340 CFM, and I've got Paul over at Kerner's going through them right now. We're putting bigger exhaust valves in them. For some reason, Kaufman puts 1.66 exhaust valves, which is a small exhaust valve for Pontiac. So we're putting 1.7s in it, doing a little bit of pocket porting on them, stuff like that.
I wonder if there's a reason, or if that, I mean, that's just common valve. Maybe it's just a cheaper.
Well, I think they just wanted to put the stock stuff back in because just in case
you already have badass 1.66s, you could just put them right back in.
Yeah, so and I didn't really know anything back then, so I just ordered the heads. It's like, I'll just put them on the motor. So we're setting them up now. It's got a custom ground solid roller cam that Frank and Frank and Arnie Beswick kind of went back and forth on how to do it. I learned a lot about cam specs and everything from Arnie Beswick actually, and we spec'd it. It's like 246, 252 at 50 on a 106 center line, and it makes 632 lift on the exhaust side and 628 on the intake side. So it's pretty rowdy for a Pontiac.
The piston and valve's got to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's. I think the last time I measured when I put it together the first time, it was like 27 thou between the piston and the valve. So it's pretty tight. It's
got that big D cam in there, bro.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through and blueprint all that stuff again and make sure everything's right.
It sounded really good when you had it together.
Yeah.
It sounded like different but good. Like not, you could tell it wasn't like a big block Chevrolet or something. It was just different sounding. It sounded good.
It should run pretty good.
Still stick?
I just bought a Liberty faceplated TKO 600 for the car. I'm fucking stoked for that. I'm sitting here fucking biting my nails because Liberty told me 12 weeks on the build time. I called them this week and they said they're still 10 to 11 weeks out. They're waiting on Tremec to send them more of. I got the road race gear ratio, so it's got a 0.2 fifth gear instead of a 0.67, just because that car's got enough cam in it that it chops real hard anything under 2 grand. So anything under 2 grand is pretty much unusable, but like it'll make power to like 72, 74.
Which is sick.
Yeah, for a Pontiac, that's a lot of RPM.
That's a lot of RPM for a Pontiac.
We really took time and balanced the thing. Paul said it's like within 0.3 grams.
Oh.
So it should spin all right. It should last up there. So we'll see.
We'll have to do what I want to start doing is I want to go and do like basically like go meet up with you and do like walk around with a car and like go like drive and you can kind of like tell us all about it and all that. But I want to do that once you get that shit back here because that thing's super rad.
Hopefully pretty soon, but it's got this big goofy fiberglass hood that Frank Townsend made. Like I was looking for him at first, like I wonder what brand hood this is and stuff. So I did a bunch of research. I couldn't find anything that looked remotely like it. And I'm at a car show. I'm at Little Anthony's with it, and this guy walks up to me. He's like, "That's Frank's old car, isn't it?" He's like, I know that car. I know that's Frank's old car." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I was there when Frank made that hood. I was like 9 years old. I was in the garage because I was friends with his brother." He's like, "Frank built that hood. He took the stock hood and used it as a mold and like laid everything up on top of it and built this custom
that's pretty
hood."
rad,
in
dude.
1969.
Wow.
So that I've still got that hood. It's kind of worked. It's kind of shitty, but like I'm gonna. That's next step is get everything mechanically sorted out, and then I'm gonna start kind of going through all the details, the interior, everything, and get it all straightened out. But the hood's got to stay on the car.
That's sick.
It's part of it. It's part of the character of the car.
But yeah, I mean, the fact that like he did it with his own hands, he thought that was super rad. Like
yeah, when I bought the car too, it was all jacked up like gasser style, and it had like 3-inch ball joint spacers. I don't know if you've ever seen ball joint spacers, but they bolt to the top of the spindle, and you put the ball joint in it to raise the front of it up. Yeah, and then he had like a piece of like Schedule 40 pipe with a flat 1/4-inch plate welded on top of it, bolted to the perches in the back to lift the back up to get it all jacked up gasser style. So, I looked at that. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll leave it. It's kind of cool gasser style. And then I did a little research on those ball joint spacers and talked to one of the tech guys at the track. He's like, dude, if I saw those, I would tell you to get lost. He's like, those are NHRA outlawed those, and I think it was like 1975 because of how sketchy and unsafe they are. So, I just took everything off and slammed it down and everything. So,
you can't beat it that way either, man. Slam down.
I
Just
think
lower
it looks
everything.
pretty sinister.
You take a car and then you lose like 1 inch on front and back, and then you lose another 2, and it's cool. Yeah. Pretty much. Period. It's like the end all be all.
I think right now it's a little too much. We'll see. I got to do some playing because the The bump stop is a 1/4 inch from the frame in the front right now.
That's perfect.
So
Just take the bump stop off.
The headers are like 1.5 inches from the ground right now.
That's how when this car, the big block, like
Yeah.
the headers, like when they're over here somewhere, they're just
Yeah.
everything's just shaved.
I had some shitty hooker comps on the car, and they're the same way. I just bought a set of Doug's for it.
Oh
So
shit!
we'll see. Those should tuck and fit a little better.
Doug's are supposed to be pretty
Dude,
tight.
it took me longer to put the headers on the car than to put the motor in and do the rest of the thing. I mean, the hooker comps that are on there, there's the way the Pontiac heads lay over, the bolts come like straight up into it. So that middle bolt, there's a key slot on the header. So you have to put your gasket up against the head. You have to start the bolt to hold the gasket on and have the bolt sticking out. And then you got to find a way to jack the motor up, jack one side up, and get the header in there and slide it onto this key slot. And then you can put the rest of the bolts in. And then you got to tighten them in a specific order to get it to pull up right.
Yep.
Otherwise, it'll pull in and the tube will hit the bolt and you can't get the bolt in. So
I had a bunch of issues when this car was a 400.
Pontiac headers are a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah, dude. When I did the 400 in this, I had the hooker comps.
Yeah.
And the passenger side was actually not fun, which was the side that you would figure wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
And then the driver's side was just I think it took me like 2 days of like after work working on getting a header in.
And so to make it worse, it's a 4-speed car. So I got all this together and I go to put the Z-bar in and I was like, you can't put it in with the header. So I had to take it back off. I had to take the driver's side back off. Had to like wiggle the header into place, hook the Z-bar up, and then put the header on around the Z-bar. It is such a pain in the ass. So we'll see if the Dougs are any better. Like I cut them off the car this time with a Sawzall because I didn't want to use them again, and I was so pissed off at them.
You just like ended it. You're like, you're not allowed to use these anymore.
Yeah. So
I have a set in the shed that's going back on this car, and I can't wait to put them on. It's gonna be a blast.
well,
It's gonna be the worst.
let me know when you're doing it because I'll be busy that week.
All right. So now we're caught up on Dominic. I would love to get back into hearing about this phone call with my most favorite hero in the whole entire world. Tell me what Jesse James had to say.
Well, Jesse, I think the biggest thing that he pushed when I was talking on the phone with him is to never stop basically looking at yourself and analyzing yourself. What are you doing? And just take a step back and look at everything objectively. What's working, what's not working. You know, start to try to fix the things that aren't working. Start to try to figure out like what isn't working for you. Like, and because we were talking business things, like how to build things right, how to run like the shop flow, workflow, employees, stuff like that. And he's like, it's not a science. Like you can't just say like here's the formula to do it. Like every shop, every clientele, every location, everything you're doing makes it just a little bit different. So with that being said, you know, you need to look at everything objectively. He said even the stuff, most importantly, the stuff that's working. It's like it's really easy to fix the things that aren't working and get to a point where things work and they feel all right. But that's where you get into trouble. And this is one of the things he told me. He said, never stop improving. Look at what you're doing. What can you do better? You know, even if it's the best thing you're doing, you can always do it better. So, you know, that had a lot, you know, that had a lot to do with how I structured things and how I've come up as a car guy is like never stop improving. Like those words have weighed pretty heavy on me. So, and then like the rest of the stuff we had in the conversation was just stuff about like general, yeah, about you and how much you suck. No, general business stuff like, you know, for example, you know, you get a customer coming in with a car that wants a full restoration done on it, you know, and you give them a quote, like how do you handle that? Do you try to take all the money up front? Do you just take parts money up front? Do you take parts and labor? Do you do this? And, you know, we kind of talked about the different situations and how to do it. And generally, like, just doing stuff like, you know, you keep your car, can't leave the car with me until all the parts are here and I have room to work on it. You know, I need a deposit with all the money for the parts to get ordered, and then 2 weeks worth of labor to get going, and then we'll square up.
That's how
Because
he does it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
and he
does
said
it.
it's a little different with every customer and every deal, but like generally as a rule of thumb, like you can't just store cars for people, and
Yeah.
that was one of the issues I was running into all the time with my shop. Is like you would have these are people's toys. Like let's face it, like we enjoy these things, but if our hot rods disappeared, like it's not like it would keep us from going to work,
Right,
to
or
be able to
be-
pay the
yeah.
bills and like feed our families. So like that was one thing I ran into all the time is like I'd have customers up my ass like when is this gonna be done? When is this gonna be done? And like I drop everything and get it hammered out for them, and then you call them and all right, it's 3 weeks before you see
They
them.
don't have no money.
Yeah, they don't have the money to pay for it, and then so you're out like all that labor where you could be making money, so you're floating. Like dude, there were times when it was like fucking 20 grand I was floating on a given month. Like I'd have $20,000 of my own money out in parts here, parts there, labor there, paying employees, paying this, and it was just, fuck, man. It's a hard business. Everybody that's listening to this right now that's doing it, like, I have the utmost respect for you. Like, it is not an easy thing.
That's crazy.
And-
One, like, there's so many different types of them too, right? There's so
Yeah.
many different types of like engine fab shop. Like you have like someone that only fab stuff. You know, like I only do cages, I only do hot sides. Like there's all these different types of shops too that it's really impressive to me to see
Right.
which ones are highly successful, why they're highly successful.
And that was one of the main things I learned too is you can't do it all. And that was one thing that we did is we did it all. We
Right.
tried to do everything but paint and body, and you know you just get into a point where you don't get into a rhythm doing one thing enough to get really good at quoting and keeping material there and everything to do it efficiently
Right.
to make money. So when you do a little bit of everything, yeah, it's cool. You get to build all kinds and do all kinds of crazy things, and it's fun for you. But it doesn't make that much business sense. All
Right,
those
you're
shops
not
that you
looking
see
at
that are successful, usually they're successful because they're doing just one thing.
Right.
And if they got to the point where they're
Multifaceted.
multifaceted and doing stuff like I know this is a terrible example because it's TV, but Gas Monkey Garage, that's because he's got like 100 employees.
Right? Yeah, you
And
have a
he's
different
got
guy
this
that's
huge bankroll, and all he does is kind of manage things around. He's got someone that's managing the paint shop. He's got someone that's managing the mechanics. He's
Yep.
got someone that's managing just the shit that goes on TV and stuff like that.
It's
So-
true though, because like if you have a shop, like say for instance, like you specifically were like, yo, I build like, or even it's like engine machine. Like if you look at an engine machine shop, most of the time there's a head guy.
Yeah.
There's a guy that does short blocks or like machining, or like if it gets bigger and bigger, there's a guy that only does cleaning. There's a guy that does breakdown. You know what I mean? The bigger you get, like you said, there's the
Yeah.
more people to do more specific things. Like Dominic, you only break down the motors, you clean it, you bring it in here, and then you know this guy, you go ahead and you check,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, order parts. You know what I mean, or whatever.
Yeah, and in some ways, I think that was one of the things where I'm kind of glad I got out of the shop because it seemed to be more and more that like we all kind of did a little bit of the business end of things, but it was mainly me that did all the interfacing with the customers and did the books and all that. And I spent so much time behind the computer running the books, calling customers, chasing money that it was like I'm not this isn't as cool as I thought. Because I'm not working on cars. I'm
Right.
running a business. I'm
Yeah.
not working on cars. So, you know, for me, it's been nice to get back away from it and be able to be like, you know what, I want to work on my car today.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and I get to build rockets every day, so I can't really complain about that.
That's interesting. Like, I mean, I think it's the old, you know, whatever you call it, the old adage that all like hot rodders think about, like whatever, opening a shop, doing whatever it is that you like to do, right? Because there's
Yeah.
all different types of hot rodding, all different. But like at the end of it all, it is a business.
Yeah.
And like even if
And-
you really like it, do you want to do all the work and never make any money? Most likely. I mean, there are people who make money, but I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
it's a
You
weird.
have to run it like a business, and it becomes a business, and it is a job, and it's how you pay your bills, and you have to think about it that way. And in a lot of ways, I was 23. I was
Yeah,
24.
yeah,
I was
dude.
naive
I
when I
was
went
not
into it.
doing
I was
what
just
you were
like,
doing at
woo,
23.
I'm gonna build fucking cars for a living. This is gonna be cool as shit. I didn't think about like, oh, how do I build this? You know, how do I do my price breakdown? You know,
Right.
all of these things that you learn, like how you're charging, how your markup's going to be, how you're gonna charge labor, how you're gonna get customers to invoice, you know, all of these like core business things. I had no idea what they were. I didn't really even think about it. You
So
know,
what
it was,
about my thing now is like I feel like
yeah,
perspective
and
wise.
I agree with you completely. Doing your hobby for a living kills your hobby. Unless you can go at it objectively and really come up with a business plan to make it work. You know, I've seen a couple of people that are lucky enough that they just do it every day and they love it. But 99% of the people out there, if they work on cars for a living, I mean, look at Sean, look at me. You know, I know a lot of people that have gotten out of it. And my buddy Wyatt, for example, oh, he hates it. He wants to get out of the car scene. He doesn't even work on his car anymore. It's doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
What about looking at like objectively? So take that experience, take your life experience. You're an older man now. You've done some engineering school. You've done all these things, but turn it and think about it as like, say, you got this fire and you wanted to do it again in a different light or whatever you'd want to do, because obviously you're fantastic with wiring and like all the stuff you do, like you're pretty,
Yeah.
like, so what would it look like with an open mind and just thinking about it in a fun way? What would be like something that you think would work, you know what I mean, looking forward, like specifics, or would you get into like
Have to be something specific. I would not want to go into try and build cars anymore. I would think like there's a couple of ways and I've thought about this. Like either I'd be building cars to sell, for, you know, where I build something that makes sense to me, like to put this thing together and then just hope someone buys it. Um, but I wouldn't be able to build it off of someone else's budget to the way they want it because you never see eye to eye money wise, and that it's hard to do that. You know, you may be able to find one or two people like that, but to be consecutively doing it is hard.
Right. What about wiring?
Or
man? People hate wiring.
yeah,
They want clean wiring, but they don't want to do it.
I don't think I would want to wire people's cars because I'm
terrible.
so anal retentive about it that the time I would commit to wiring something because of how OCD I am about laying everything out and making everything look nice, like I would have 2 or 3 times as many hours in it that someone would be willing to pay.
Right.
So, but I've also thought about like I love building motors. You know, I would love to get into like engine development and stuff like that. Just not just building.
Like machining. Like,
Yeah, not just machining and putting stuff together, but like pushing the envelope. You know, trying to build something new and unique. You know, working on a lot of the hybrid stuff. You know, or building. I've always talked, and there's a couple of people I've talked about, like starting a car company, actually trying to build supercars, and like that's something I could see in the future. And like I think I need to expand and diversify my toolbox a little more, and keep, you know, grind my teeth in the engineering world a little more before I really feel confident. But I'd like to see the automotive world, and I'd like to do something like that. The other thing I'd love to do too is, I love trying to figure out how things broke. You know,
I'm good at breaking shit. We can hang out.
I would love to, you know, try to find a job working for one of the big companies or working for a race team doing like R&D stuff. Like figure out like, okay, where are things gonna fail at?
Failure analysis.
Yeah, finite element analysis on stuff, failure analysis, and figuring out like how do we fix the problem of why this broke? Like just, you know, I think that's the biggest thing too, and what's really driven me to go back to school for engineering is I'm a problem solver. That's why I got into cars in the first place. Is being a mechanic is not just about how cool they are, but like I enjoy the puzzle of trying to figure something out,
Right.
trying to make something run faster, trying to figure out why it's not running right. Like all of these things like or what keep my mind ticking.
Dude, that's how I am. I'm like a big. It's interesting for me. I love building the cars, but like going through it with Katie's right now, like teaching myself AP tuners and like getting to the point of like you build the car, you kind of forget about like tuning and like, maybe being at the race, getting a car to 60 foot, all those things that I feel like I'm actually fairly okay at. But like
Yeah.
those things are really fun, and then I forget about it almost because you're building a car and then you get to it and it's like a renaissance because you're like, this is fucking awesome. I love this part. You're trying to get it to like idle, and then like in gear you're like, oh, it runs like shit, and then like you kind of fix it. You're like, ooh, I did something, and then what I mean, that whole thing like that to me is so rewarding and so
Absolutely.
like so
Absolutely.
good. This like the juicy. They talk about like what was that movie and Rob Williams talking about like the juicy stuff in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the juicy stuff, dude.
That is absolutely the juicy stuff in life, and that just like that sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
Back and be like, oh, I made that do that.
Yeah.
That is one of the greatest feelings in the world.
I feel like every car guy remembers.
And as much as I've been talking negatively about owning my own shop, I loved it. Don't get me wrong, as much of a pain in the ass and burnt out as I got, it was one of the most fun things I've ever done, and that is exactly why. I mean, and everybody experiences that. You go through these stages with a build where you're super excited about it in the middle, in the beginning. About the middle time, you're starting to get frustrated with some things. You get back over that hump. About 80% of the way you're into it, fuck this thing. This thing's a piece of shit. I don't ever want to do anything like this again. I'll never do this again. And then you hit that point when you finally get to take a step back and appreciate all the work, and it's like, this is totally worth it. Experiencing that on a daily basis was pretty awesome. Like, that was one of the most rewarding feelings of my life. It's like, especially with the big builds, like just fighting this, fighting that, fighting the customer, fighting the car, fighting whatever, and then you finally get something done, and it's just like, oh, this was so worth it.
So sick, yeah.
So worth it.
This is the first time like I've been able to build something like kind of for someone, and like with the Nova, and just today like I was like playing on it, and Katie walked up behind me, and like I didn't. She always like she's into that. She sneaks up on me, dude. It's like her favorite. So I'm like checking the trans fluid in the car, and it's like running, so like I don't hear her, and then she's like, ah, and she sneaks up on me. She's like, hey, the car sounds good, and I was like, sick. Like, you think your car is cool? Like, and I built it. It's like a cool dynamic. I can't wait to like, and like I'm like holding it still. I think people think like I should have like given it to her yet, but like it's not time. It's just like if it was a customer, like I'm not gonna give it to her. She can't drive it. She goes to get into it and pull out into traffic, and it's like, and then like she gets T-boned.
That was always one argument that was you have with customers is it's like, I need to put 100 miles on your car.
Absolutely.
Doing a full restoration, I need to put at least 100 miles on your car. I would shoot for 500. I need to put 500 miles on your car. I need to have it for a month to drive it back and forth to work, to wherever. And like, people are like, oh, you're just being greedy. It's like, no, I'm rattling all the loose bolts out and going back over and tightening them every single one every day.
Yep.
I'm going through and tuning and making sure everything's right. I'm changing the oil, checking the oil, cutting the filter open, making sure there's no metal shavings or anything in it. Like, these are all the things that are part of the break-in procedure, that when you go buy a brand new car, they've run this through the assembly line.
They've already done it.
All of this stuff's been done already.
Yeah.
But like, I'm trying to set everything for you. And
because we've built cars for ourselves and dealt with that shit.
Yeah,
but on the side of the road, like,
and
God.
the one time I didn't do that, and I let a customer take something in a hurry, one of the motor mount bolts came loose and almost fell out, and he came back super livid with me, and me and him went back and forth on that. He was super pissed off, told me he didn't want to be touching any more of his cars anymore, and I told him that. I was like, dude, I worked for the last 2 weeks. I've put 200 hours in your car because you wanted it done to drive it for New Year's. I got it done the day before New Year's, told you I needed to keep it to put some miles on it, and that I wasn't expressing any warranty on it because you weren't going to let me do that. I'm going to go back over the car because you brought it back to me, and because I told you to do that, but I told you this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And like he finally had calmed down after a little while, and like let me have the car for a month and a half and like really go through it. And of course, I mean, it's not that we built the car wrong. It's just like
shit happens, man.
When everything's coming together, like things settle, things vibrate. You got to make sure you torque everything, you know, and that brings up one point that I wanted to say. Everybody needs to get yourself a build book. I got this fancy bound notebook, and this is like my Bible. I have this for my 64. Every time like I have a thought or of something I want to do on the car, I write it down in here. Because I mean, we've all been there. You forget what you were doing. You forget that thought. It's like, man, I know I had a great idea. So I write everything down in here. I carry this on me in my backpack at all times. And like anytime I work on the car, I write what I do in here. You know, for example, when I measure out all my bearing clearances and blueprint the motor, all that stuff will be in here. Every single part that I'm putting in the motor, I'm writing like my cam specs go in here. You know, every part, it may be tedious, it may seem like a little much, but from having a shop and doing this and logging everything, it's so helpful. 6 months from now, you know, oh shit, I forget what I was doing. Like, what did I put in the back there?
Yep.
Or did I change the fluid or something? No, it's all right here. You got to remember.
Well, if you haven't touched it in 6 months.
Yeah, you can remember what you were doing last time. And then when you get to the point when you're past the build part of it and you're really going out and enjoying it and you're going racing, and like that's really where this came from, is getting a chance to go racing with some people. You know, not only the Vector team, but like my buddy Kenny, I used to go out and race, help crew with his Pro Comp dragster, but we used to log everything. You know, what jets we put in the carburetor that day, what the weather was like, what this was like. So, you know, say you've got adjustable shocks, like, oh, it ran a 12.6 and it was on 4 clicks from firm. You know, and you start screwing with things and it gets slow.
Yep.
Well, where was I when it ran that pass? Like, everything's in here. You know, it's important to be methodical like that. And
it's super similar to like coming from the aviation world. Like everything is documented.
Yeah.
For every aircraft has a book for itself with flying hours, like all of the maintenance documented, and then it goes in the computer and all that stuff. That's more for like, it's for
FAA.
records keeping.
Yeah,
but it's also like
it's a
who messed
safety
this up.
thing,
Like,
because-
yeah. But it's a good point, especially when you start to get to the car guy level of like having like 4 or 5 cars, and then you have like a really fast car that you don't want to die in, and you want to make sure that everything is like legit in the car.
Yeah, and if you're just building something to go cruise around and stuff, you probably don't need to do it, but this will help.
Yeah.
You know, we have build books for all the race cars. You know, if it was wrecked and we fix something, it goes in there, you know, that way. And those log books, when I learned this from when I was working at Vintage Exotics and going through all of these high dollar race cars, like those high dollar race cars are high dollar race cars because they have all of this paper trail. You know, not only do they have a pedigree to it, but they have like this whole list where, say you bought one of these cars, well, you could build a copy of that car off of the book. You know, and that was like what made the thing worth $20,000 more, was just this book, this Bible that came with it. So I've been starting to do that and trying to keep up on making sure that I'm logging everything. And you know, it's the racing world's completely different. I mean, especially when you get into road racing and stuff like that. I mean, we're all of our experience is drag racing. I didn't get any because honestly I couldn't afford it. It's expensive, but it is.
It's pretty interesting. I'm gonna have it for later. So I mean, really, if I was just not writing on a whiteboard and put it in a book, it'd be.
Yeah, well, I do it too. Like I use my windshield. I use a grease pen in my windshield. Like the car's taken apart. What do I need to do? I'll put it on my windshield.
Right.
But before I race anything, I cross things off, and like I will write down, okay, I did this today, did this today, did this today. I don't write the list unless like I'm away from the car. I'll write my list out. Like, here's my list to put on the windshield, and then I'll transfer that list to the windshield so that when I'm staring at the car, I'm right there. And it's just one of those things where it's not like every time I touch a bolt, I write, oh, turn that bolt quarter turn. It's no, I'm washing my hands, cleaning up for the day. Let me like take my thoughts and put them back into this book. So that way I know like 3 weeks from now when I come back to work on it, oh yeah, that's right. I can pick back up where I left off, and I can start adjusting the valves now because I'm ready for that point.
Yeah, and that's a
Instead
big.
of it being like, oh, I don't remember. Maybe I adjusted those, or are you even forgetting about something?
Yep.
Because that's the other thing too, is it keeps you from forgetting about doing something critical. You know,
It's just like a shift changeover.
as stupid as it sounds, like filling the motor with oil. You know.
Oh yeah, I do like the no oil tag. I don't know, but I feel like that's a big one.
Yeah.
No, because I've done it. I've fired a motor without oil, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
I think everyone has.
Yeah, it's just
has
people don't
come
admit that
close.
shit. Like
You know, I've ran something. I've put a bunch of fresh oil in it and forgot to put a filter on it. And
it's like dripping out.
well, it's not dripping at that point. It's pouring out. Like
What's happening?
Starting the thing, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of smoke. Like, oh, what's going on? I look down at 4 quarts on the ground. Have to hit the key real quick.
Just the other when I was building Katie's car, man. The trans I got from the guy, he had put a temp gauge into the pressure reading on the 60E. It's like on like the top driver's side.
Yeah.
And I lit her car for the first time, and it was just like fluid, bro. And I was like, what the heck is happening? And then like, dude, I don't know what, it just like gushing. And you're just like freaking out. And then my buddy Michael Page was like, sounds like the pressure port's open. And I was like, yeah, something's freaking open. Like 16 quarts later.
Yeah. Yeah, those things take a lot of fluid.
Yeah, I think it's like, he said like 12 quarts full. That's ridiculous. I just put in like another 4 quarts in it today because it was still slipping, like, it was still low. I just took her on the block and I was like, dang, this thing still needs more fluid. It was ridiculous. So now we have to get into the portion that's my favorite portion before I let you go. And it's we've kind of talked about Jesse James, but we're going to talk about him in the fashion that I like to in the show. This is the Jesse James / Jesse affected maybe your life with like, Monster Garage or with the Discovery shit that he did that was all pretty rad.
To be completely honest, I don't necessarily think he affected me as young as a lot of people. Like, I wasn't watching a whole lot of Monster Garage. I knew I liked cars and I was kind of into cars because of being around it with my buddies, but it's not like I really watched very many. It was like high school that I really started getting into that stuff. And like, I would watch that stuff on TV and Monster Garage and be like, oh man, that stuff's really cool. But it was, it was kind of really recently, like, I saw it in high school, but like about the time I turned 20 was when I started kind of going back and revisiting a lot of Jesse James's stuff and like starting to really critically look at him as a builder and see like the quality of builds, because it's hard to really understand the gravity of Jesse's influence and like his skill and you don't know anything about building. And it's like Sean was talking about too. Like at one point I was another one of those audience members that would have voted on Paul's bike. Like, wow, like I could do that. Like it's not just some big flashy thing where they're gonna just show a little snippet of someone putting something together or like fake adjusting a valve here just for TV because someone else is building the car offset. For TV, like you start to really realize like he's the real deal, and like the more stuff you watch, you're just like, holy shit, like, and I follow him on Facebook and stuff like that, and I think the stuff he posts, the stuff he says, like I remember watching an interview with him a couple weeks ago, and he's talking about how he like came to be and get to where he was, and like Discovery filmed the first season of what was it? I think it was West Coast Choppers.
He had like the Motorcycle Mania.
Yeah, it was Motorcycle Mania, and
good.
They followed him to the beach, and he's sitting there on the beach, just kind of talking to himself, and he's just like, I'm tired of fighting people. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. Like I'm tired of chasing people.
Yeah,
John was tired, man. And he talks about how he had a call after that, and, like. He had some guy calling. It's like, hey, is this Jesse? It's like, I just want you to know that I'm tired of all that bullshit too, man. And then click, hung up. And he's like, that was the moment he knew like the gravity of like the influence he had. And it just, we're incredibly lucky to have someone like him that like understands his influence and still like tries to be friends with everyone, tries to build something nice, and tries to, keep people motivated to do the best. Not just
says what he fucking wants.
yeah,
too.
he says what's on his mind, and he says how he feels about things, and people may think he's a dickhead for it, but I don't think he's necessarily being a dickhead as much as he's just being honest and truthful. And that honesty is what like makes him the person he is, and it's humbling because he hasn't just become this giant raging asshole where all the fame went to his head. Like he still like cares about the quality, cares about building cool stuff, and like that, like he's a true hot rodder like at the core.
Yeah, like
And,
it's funny because
to
he
be
comes
able
off
to-
like he was like the like. He still kind of is, which is what I dig. Is like he's just kind of like the punk hot rod kid,
yeah,
but he's also like. He's not. We're none of us are perfect, but he's
No.
grown as a person over the years,
Yeah.
right? Like I mean, he like married a porn star. Not a great idea in any
Yeah.
facet, but yeah, I mean, like he's done like all these things, and now he's like an older dude too. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
not. I mean, he's not old, but he's not young, and now he's like still like using his influence to like get you in the garage or shit like that, which is pretty rad.
He didn't just disappear with all his money and like get away from the public. No, he's still very much so like tries, and like the way he tries to be in public is in such a positive way. Like I'm sure half the people listening are following him on Facebook. You follow him on Facebook.
Hell
and,
yeah.
Like everything
I'd follow him to his house.
yeah, everything he posts is like inspirational stuff. And it's not like, oh, love will set you free, kind of these like just post random copy pasting quotes. Like he actually posts something that like is meaningful.
He
that
sits
you
down and
can
writes
tell.
it with his phone.
He sat down and wrote something out, and like, and that has been, I think, the most influential thing about Jesse James in my life is like after having that conversation with him about looking at things critically and looking at things objectively, I've been doing that a lot more, and you realize how much like that has gotten him to where he is. That's the whole reason he is where he is because he's always thinking, how can I be better? How can I be better? How can I be better?
He stopped West Coast Shoppers when he did because it was not working.
Yeah,
and
it
then
wasn't getting any better.
He moved and he changed his life because it wasn't. I mean, it's all like the objective.
Exactly, and most people would have gotten stuck there. It's like, I've got this big shop, life's great, I've got all this stuff going on.
How am I going to do this again?
How
Is this gonna
can I
happen
ever
again?
do this again? And he said, no, I did it before, I can do it again. Threw it all away and built it bigger and better a second time. And
it kind of reminds me of like do you know like the Dave Grohl story, like from the Foo Fighters? He had like a Netflix. Anyways, he was like the drummer for Nirvana, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like everybody, he was a drummer for Nirvana, and then he ended up starting the Foo Fighters. But like, if you like watch that documentary, that was super interesting to me. Like, not that I'm like I'm not again. I'm cool with the Foo Fighters, but I just grew up to listening. Like my parents listen to Foo Fighters so much that, oh my god. But like him as like a businessman and him as like a passion creator was very similar to like Jesse James, where like it was both like confidence and also like there's just something inside the dude that was like, I'm fucking doing this because I don't know, I have to. Like this is just in me. Like I'm doing it. Like period. Which is like pretty rad in my opinion.
Yeah, just blindly saying, I know this is what I'm meant for and this is what I need to do, and just doing it.
So what about Fast and the Furious, bruh?
Well, so I've got a kind of a different take on that than Sean does, because Sean's a little bit older than we are, and I think the original Fast and Furious came out when I was in middle school.
Yeah, we were. Well, you're a couple years young. No, you're the same age or older than me.
29.
Yeah, so it's 28. Yes,
Yeah,
it was
same.
2004. We were freshmen, high school.
Yeah, so freshman in high school. And so I think I didn't know enough about cars back then to like, I still thought it was kind of a stupid Hollywood movie. And like, but I thought like that was one of the things where it's like, fuck, cars are so cool. Like I want to go out and go street racing. Like, and I think that had such a huge influence on a lot of younger people.
Oh yeah.
I think there were a lot of people that were already in the hot rod scene and stuff like that looked at it, were just like, cool, Hollywood movie. Who cares? Like it was an entertaining movie at best, like Sean said. But like to see that as a kid and not really knowing a whole lot about how cars or the car scene or any of that stuff works, like I think you saw such a huge resurgence in our generation of kids going street racing because of that movie.
Yeah.
Because they saw that movie, like, oh yeah, we gotta go that. And I mean, you saw like the tuner scene just absolutely exploded, especially Hondas. Like high school, Hondas were so popular. Like everybody had a hatchback, had a Civic, and they blew up in the '90s, and I think it's because of Fast and the
Had to
Furious.
play a huge role, right?
I'm sure it played a
It's
huge
just
role.
like-
I could be wrong, but
That's why they're my two favorite arguments. Because
Yeah.
like, how can you say that either one of these things, Jesse James or Fast and Furious, didn't have some type of pretty solid impact? Because it did. But it's fun to think about and talk about.
and stupid as it is, you're absolutely right.
But
And,
that's like-
how many Honda kids do you know now? Not saying there aren't any,
Few,
but
yeah.
there aren't as many. When I knew more Honda kids than I knew like guys putting out lessons
Playing,
or
yeah.
playing with muscle cars or V8s or domestic stuff. I knew way more Honda kids back in the day than I knew people playing with domestic.
There was this kid. This is a side story. It's super funny. I don't want to get too far off track because it's a good. But so this buddy of mine, Kyle, and I, we were like friends. Your little group, and they were a little older than me at the time. And our friend had a hatch that was all done up. It was a pretty sick car, honestly. But his name was Todd, and in the morning in your little parking lot, you have like your school cop, the guy that like watches.
Subi said the new Honda. That's absolutely true.
Subis are definitely the new Hondas, but
Yeah.
Subis are kind of rad too.
Yeah, they are.
I don't really hate too many things. I just don't want to buy them and play with them. So this kid Todd has this hatch, and me and Kyle just start like harassing him terribly to do a burnout, and he's facing like this way. And our school cop every morning parked in the same spot right across the street. But for some reason, we get Todd to do a burnout with the e-brake on in his hatch. And like we're like pouring, like Kyle had like a Dr. Pepper, he's like pouring on the tire. I'm like pouring more water on the other tire. I'm like, yeah, man, just light her up. And like he's like third gear, like roasting these tires and in place in the parking lot. And like it's like 6:45 in the morning. And then the cop pulls up slow and he gets out. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? Excuse my language, but he's like, what'd you think was gonna happen? Like what? And me and Kyle were like, all right, man, we'll see you later. Like just walked away. This dude got his fat ass ticket.
Oh,
Hondas for life.
I got a good one like that. So, like I said earlier, I had that '69 Le Mans I was driving in high school. So graduation night, I'm in line, this huge, massive line to get out of the parking lot because it's graduation and everybody's there. And I'm so stoked to graduate. My buddy Matt's sitting in the car with me, and I'm sitting there, like, I'm gonna do the biggest, fattest burnout I've ever done in this car. And I light him up, and the smoke is rolling. Just standing on it, like 30 seconds into it, I hear a knock on my window, and I look over, and it's a cop sitting there that was directing traffic for graduation. And so
You just roll it down while I still roast
I did. I actually did.
Can I help you?
And he's got this big smirk on his face. He's like, shut the car off. And I shut it down. He's like, give me your license and registration and park over there. So I pull out a line and I park over there. And Matt's like, all right, man, well,
This has been blast.
I'm gonna let you sort this out. Because I told him, I was like, dude, it's going to take forever. And yeah, just go. I'll catch up with you guys later. He made me sit in that parking lot until every single car left on graduation night
That's
from high school.
ridiculous.
And he came up and walked back, handed me my ID and insurance and everything back. And he's like, if I ever see you even squeak the tires in this car again, you are going to jail. Like, be safe tonight. Happy graduation. Have a good one. And like walked away. So I got lucky.
Dude, that's
didn't get a ticket.
Super rad.
Yeah, but
Got way lucky.
yeah, he was.
That's your
But,
graduation.
Dude,
visit.
I sat in that parking lot for almost 2 hours, just sitting in my car. 2 hours. watching everybody leave and like pointing at me like, oh, he's in so much trouble because he had the cop car pulled up next to me with the
And you're just
lights
like,
on
no,
and
bro, how
everything.
sick was that?
I'm just sitting there. Yeah,
It's
I
not
guess
my
I get to
fault. I'm a
watch.
punk car rider.
Yeah, that car got me in a lot of trouble when I was in high school. Was probably not the car I needed my senior year of high school, but
my parents were
it was
like,
the car I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I bought it myself.
you bought it yourself,
And
so
that
I
was
couldn't
that
say
was the
shit.
best thing about that car is that I had figured out a way to buy this thing myself, and nobody could take that away from me.
You learned a
because
lot
that
of
was
life
my
lessons
hobby.
in that short amount of time.
Oh,
honestly, dude.
absolutely.
I had like a different situation. I kind of probably mentioned it before, but I ended up like I think at that point I already had my black truck like graduation,
Yeah.
which was like just a C 1500 like 95, but it was all slammed and everything. But the first truck I had at the beginning of high school before I had like grown a bunch was a single cab Dakota. It's like a 318 and a 5-speed.
Fuck yeah.
And it had like the RT wheels. They were like
Yeah.
10 or like what are they, like 8 or 10 inches wide. It was sick. It was like slammed and it was like big green. And it wasn't RT though. It was like the dude like special ordered it. It was like a bone stock interior, like with like no. It was a weird truck, but it was cool. But like between my parents, like I wanted a Mustang, like the white car that I have now.
Yeah.
That's why I have it. Is because I'm reliving my childhood. I wanted a notchback 5.0.
Life crisis.
Yeah, and so it's not a big deal, but like in my thing in my mom's head, it was like that's a fast car, which like is not, right? Like 5.0 Mustangs are not fast, but
at the time they kind of
okay. I mean for high school, but that
yeah.
truck had 73s in it, and that thing was just as much as a riot.
Guarantee it.
That thing was I beat the bejesus out of that thing, man. That poor truck got the brakes beat off it.
Yeah.
So much fun. We just still do the same things we did when we were 16.
Yeah, they're just a little smarter about it.
They're just a little faster. Sometimes. Not all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Burn out their life. So, like, there's been a lot of kind of back and forth, and it going away. So I think the GTO is going to go away. It's kind of a bummer, but I figured we'd talk about it since you're a Pontiac guy.
You know, we had this discussion, and there's cars that need to stay and there's cars that need to go, and you know that's an internal battle that every one of us has to fight. And
hard.
I've sold a lot of stuff that I regret, and I've sold a lot of stuff I've thought I was going to regret, and I don't. You know, and it's one of those things like where something serves a purpose for you and it has become something, but at the same time, like, got to remind yourself that we do this because we like building.
Hell yeah.
If you don't like building things, then don't sell it, keep that, and don't build anything else.
Just do it once.
But since we're all in this to build things, like some stuff you can't hold on to.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I had a lot of
man.
fun with it, man. It was a cool car, but at the same time, I think like someone will enjoy it so much more being like a real GTO and like having a Pontiac motor in it and all that stuff.
Thank
like,
God you got rid of that bullshit big box.
They run good though.
Yeah.
I'm really bummed that I never got to do a comparison because like I always tell people, and it's really, I mean, I lean towards Chevy stuff just because it's like, I don't know, it's very accessible maybe is the word, and it is cheap, but I'm not like biased. I think all things are super rad. It's just some things cost more money.
Dude, I'm the same way.
And I think it would have been dope.
I like Pontiacs, and Pontiacs are kind of expensive.
Pontiacs are kind of expensive, but it would have been rad to do, because I had a really nice 455 in it. I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before, but I had a really nice 455 in it. And it would have been really cool to see the 455 versus the 454, at least to see like, I mean, they're different power, but I had different gears in it too. I had 73s in it, which I think would have been perfect. It probably would have been a mid 12 second car, not 10 second car.
Yeah.
12 somethings.
Well, I mean, that's
had 12s on it.
Yeah, the 400 and my 69 ran a 13.1.
Really?
When I was in high school, and that was 400 Ram Air 3 heads, so like 10.5 to 1 compression, iron heads that were stock. I don't know if they had any porting or anything. I didn't build the motor. I didn't do anything to it. Stock rods, stock pistons, Edelbrock Performer intake, and a 750 Holly on it. Like,
dang, pretty simple.
Yeah, and it had a regrind of a Ram Air 4 cam, so it had like the hotter factory cam to it. So it ran good.
Dude, those factory cams like Pontiac. If you're not into Pontiacs,
it's like
people swear by this
236, 242. Like it's a big cam for a factory like hydraulic cam.
So that's like the same, but a flat tap it is the same cam that I had on 455. That Paul, it's a Lunati grind. That's very similar to. So like, and then they also, if you get in the forums, the real hardcore Pontiac guys are like, put a quadrajet on it.
Yep.
Or we'll murder you.
Well, there's something to be said about quadrajets. They're really, really good carburetors. They really are. They're a pain in the ass to tune, and I'll never put one on anything I own because I don't have the time or the patience to learn them. But I know a lot of people that have played with quadrajets and made cars with quadrajets run better than a car with a Holley.
Yeah, they've always tried to do like the side-by-side dyno.
Yeah.
You'd be like, this is better. And I'm like, dude, it might be, but I don't care. Like,
yeah, it's more of a pain in the ass, so I don't really care.
Ray Dalton says, what's up, fellas? Long time.
Ray.
No see, mister. Yeah, it's been
Hi, buddy.
What's up, Ray? Ray slings parts at us all the time, man. So,
I haven't seen Ray in probably... It's probably been 5 years,
he's
6 years.
He's still making trouble. That's what we do. We make trouble.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Cool, brother. Well, I think I had a pretty good time. Maybe we'll let these folks get on with their night.
I think so.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say before you go?
I think I gotta pee.
You gotta pee real bad. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And we'll see you 2 weeks from now for the next high. If you want to pee, man, you can take off. I'm just going to say goodbye. But 2 weeks from now, I'm going to put it in my calendar so I don't forget. We might even travel to Phoenix or something soon. I have some ideas. There's some, people kind of want to be on the show. Some people are like people that I want to be on that I haven't asked yet. So there's that. I said in the beginning, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep this going. Like, Hot Rod Philosophy's not going anywhere. My vlogs and like builds might be somewhat sporadic, just to be honest. But if you don't see anything from me, this will be here. And as far as in my shop right now, I'm going through the GTO's motor. The Pacer's still good. I just put a wastegate spring in it. Like, everything's pretty chill. Nova's getting tuned. Nothing too crazy. Still organizing. I want to make a follow-up video to the organizing video because I have actually made some progress. So we can talk about that a little bit. I did. Yeah, you just can't notice because it immediately gets worse. Somewhat sporadic. Yeah, I'm just being chill. Ray said somewhat sporadic. They say people should be like pretty consistent and everything. I haven't been. So this is my consistency. Come and check this out every other week, and we'll be here doing hot rod things and trying not to die in this heat. How do you like this hat, man? That's a nice sun hat.
Yeah.
I got that for LS Fest, man. That was real nice.
Yeah, and I'll be back. You'll see more of me.
Okay.
As soon as I get this thing done,
Hell yeah.
We'll be going for a drive.
I want to start making some driving around, some action videos, man. I want to get into it a little bit. Hey, while I still have you too, if you don't mind, go ahead and throw the video a like. It helps push it out. And then if you want to share it on your Facebook, no pressure, but I'm just mentioning it so it might make you remember to do it. We did have a lot of people watch the last one, so it's pretty cool. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, where are you guys today?
Yeah.
Oh, where'd you guys go?
No, we got everybody up. And
It's because I was late. I'm sorry.
It's because Dominick was like, Wi-Fi was all messed up. It was Katie's fault.
Yeah.
It's been